Hey guys, my name is Ryan, and today we're going to be talking about the Kingdom of Scotland. Scotland is the most recently released adversary in the game. It came out in Promo Pack 2, which you can now purchase in the form of Feather and Flame. So this adversary is actually a very simple adversary, and it's a very popular one because the rules are not very complex, and its escalation makes for really wild and bizarre team games. So let's go through and let's take a look at all the different things that Scotland does, starting with its level 1. So after setup in Coastal Lands, Explore cards will add a town instead of an Explorer. And when the Coastal Lands card comes up, it does it for only 2 lands, not all 3. So right off the bat, we can see that Scotland is very strong in the coast. Its coasts explore as towns instead of coming in as explorers. So they're immediately going to be hitting a lot harder. Oftentimes in an empty land, you can be focused on the number 3 because that's how much damage is going to come in from an explorer plus a town. But with Scotland on the coast, that number is 5. And so there's a lot of cards that will give you like Defend 2, Defend 3 that are just not going to work against the Scotland coast. Also notable is that you will immediately build a city on the build after a coastal explorer. And that's significant if we take a look at the additional loss condition, Trade Hub. If the number of coastal lands with a city is ever greater than 2 times the number of boards, the invaders win. So that means in a single player game, all 3 of your coastal lands, if they have at least 1 city in each of them, you automatically lose. In a multiplayer game, there will be a different number, and I'll put all that up on the screen. Okay, difficulty level 2. You're going to add an extra city to land number 2, and then you're going to modify the way that the Invader deck gets set up. And the key note here is that we know exactly where the Coastal Lands Invader card is going to be. And I'm going to get a lot into this later, but this is actually going to be the weakest point of the game for Scotland, is when this Coastal cards is coming up. Even though we're OP in the coast, Scotland is OP in the coast, right? Everything that they do in the coast is better. Knowing exactly where the coastal card is will allow us to set up and prepare for this moment. And so I'll be focusing on that a lot later in just a minute, but recognize that from level 2 up, the Invader deck has changed and we know exactly where the coastal card is. Okay, Scotland 3. Coastal lands still, in coastal lands, build cards still affect the land, even if there's no invaders, so long as there is an adjacent city. So if there's no invader at all, but there's an adjacent city, it'll still build, and it would build as a town. Okay, Scotland 4, it just changes out the Invader deck just a little bit. Then Scotland 5, when Ravage actions add a blight to a coastal land, add a blight into the ocean. So we are having better explorers with Scotland 1, we have better or more resilient builds with Scotland 3, and we have more effective ravages with Scotland 5. So 1, 3, and 5 all clearly build up to being overpowered on the coast. Our additional loss condition cares about the coast. So Scotland has a very clear and distinct theme, but the buildings don't have extra health, and they don't do extra damage on Ravage, so in a lot of ways, Scotland is pretty simple to wrap your mind around. That's why it's so popular to play. Additionally, if we take a look at the escalation, on a single board with the most coastal buildings, add a town to the N lands with the fewest number of towns. So N being the number of players. So with this escalation, you see how many people you have playing. So let's say you have like a 4-person game going, and you will have to add a town to 4 different lands in 1 island. So 3 people are completely unaffected, but 1 guy just gets hammered on. And it's very funny when that happens, and it forces the team to collaborate. Oftentimes what may happen is you have like parallel play, where Everyone's kind of doing their own thing. Everyone's taking their care of their own island, and there's not a lot of interactivity with each other. Scotland forces you to crawl over to your teammate's island to help them out, which I really enjoy. It's worth noting that for all escalations, unless otherwise noted, the escalation happens before the explore action happens. So that's significant for Scotland because an explorer can add more buildings to your coast, but the escalation counts how many coastal buildings you have before the explore happens. And then lastly, Scotland 6 is after the Ravage step, add a town to each inland land that matches a Ravage card and is within one range of a building. So this is the first effect that matters for the inland, and it only matters for the inland. So I'm not too focused on level 6 adversaries with this channel, so just recognize that if you're not quite hitting 6 yet, there is absolutely no bonus for the inlands, but when you do hit that level 6, the inlands just become a very sustained, durable adversary. You can never quite clear out your inlands because of this effect. One cool thing to note about Scotland is it has the most fear cards of any adversary, topping out at 16 fear cards. So previously, I said that the coastal card being stacked in the deck is the weakest point in the game for Scotland. But every single one of Scotland's bonuses makes them stronger on the coast. So that doesn't make any sense. How can this be? Well, let's go back to the basics. Let's take a look at the Invader deck itself. Let's take a look at the Invader cards. So here in front of me, we have every single Invader card in the game. This top row is stage 1. It is simply one of each of the land types. Okay, here on stage 2, it's each of the land types with an escalation, and then the coastal card, which does not have an escalation. And then on stage 3, it is every single land type pair possible. So you'll see that, the wetlands is represented 3 times, pairing up with each of the other 3. Sands pairs up with each of the other 3. Okay, mountains pairs up with each of the other 3. And jungles does as well. So when we set up the Invader deck, we will shuffle each of the different stages into 3 separate decks, and we will randomly remove one of each. Now, if we could see these cards that were randomly removed, we would know the exact contents of the deck. But alas, we're not allowed to. All we can do is take the information that we have and try and make educated guesses. And our odds of being able to guess correctly goes up incrementally over time. So let's take a look at these stage 1 cards. If I grab them, shuffle them up. Okay, I could try and predict what the very first Explorer of the game is. Now, it's not like you're going to be able to make any decisions. You can't do anything before the first Explorer. But just for the fun of it, let's try and just guess what the first card's going to be. I'm going to guess Jungle, right? But you can guess whatever you want. There's only a 1 in 4 chance of me being right and a 3 in 4 chance of me being wrong. So I am most likely wrong, but I'm going to guess Jungle. And hey, I'm amazing. I beat the odds. Okay, but let's say this is our opening Explore the game. We can't actually make any decisions before this goes out. All we can do is feel good about ourselves for having correctly guessed that Jungles was up first. Well, in our very first turn, we have to make some decisions, and we might choose to play a slow card on our first turn. It is possible, based on whatever spirit that you're playing, that you may or may not be able to be in range of every single land on the board with the ability that you wish to use in the slow phase. Maybe it's like a range 1 from a Sacred Site ability. So now you have to start playing the odds. You have to start gambling. What do I think it's going to be? Well, we know it can either be a sands, a wetlands, or a mountain. So we can make a guess, but we only have a 1 in 3 chance of being correct. So because we are most likely going to be wrong, let's hope that we're not completely gambling on like a range 0 power. But let's just say I'm going to take a guess, and I'm going to say this is wetlands. Oh, I was wrong. Well, I was supposed to be wrong. There's a 2/3 chance of me being wrong and only a 1 in 3 chance of me being right. Okay, well now we're going to be going into our second spirit phase. Okay, in between the Invader cards is when we get a spirit phase, right? So we're in our second spirit phase of the game after the second Invader card gets revealed. And now we have a 50% chance of correctly guessing what the next card will be. So it can either be a wetlands or a mountains. Wetlands failed me last time, so I've got to go mountains. Hey, I was right. 50% chance of being right? That's when I'm most likely going to be correct, right? Because this wetlands, right? We know this is a wetlands, has been removed from the game, right? So as we're working our way through stage 3, the odds of us guessing correctly goes up, okay? Right, from 25 to a 33 to a 50% chance of going up. Well, after we go through our stage 1 cards, we have to go to stage 2. So all this information that we just gained by, guessing and getting information back from the Invader deck, that's no longer available to us. So now we are right back to a 1 in 5 chance of guessing the next card. Okay, so remember, it's one of each land type plus coastal. I'm going to go ahead and say that this one is the Sands. Oh, we were wrong. Okay, we only had a 20% chance of guessing this one correctly. There was an 80% chance of me getting it wrong. Okay, so I'm likely going to get this wrong. I would not want to play a slow power that's completely dependent on the Explore if my very next card was going to be going into the coast. Okay, you could still play a slow power that has a lot of flexibility, but let's say that we had a card that could only be used in the wetlands. It wouldn't make sense to use it in this situation because we'd be relying on a 1 in 5 chance of hitting wetlands. Well, anyways, here we are. Now we have 4 cards left. We're at 25% chance. I'm going to say jungles. Oh, wrong again. Right? We have our next card. We have a higher chance of guessing correctly, a 1 in 3 chance. I'm going to go jungles again. And I'm wrong again. Right? It's it's hard to correctly guess the next card coming up in the Invader deck. But this next one, we know it's either going to be a Sands or a Jungles, and Jungles has failed me twice, so I'm going to go Sands, and there we go. I'm correct. Okay, I got both of these two correct because that is when I have the most likely chance of getting a card correct. Okay, getting this Jungles correct was pretty wild, but all the rest of these I got wrong. And mathematically speaking, that makes sense. I am so much less likely to guess correctly than I am incorrectly that getting it wrong is just a reasonable outcome. But when there's only one card left, it's a coin flip. So what does all this have to do with Scotland? Well, Scotland is the only Invader in the game where we have a 100% chance of guessing the next card. And that is because from Scotland 2 and above, we place the coastal card exactly, what does that be, the 6th card? Goes 1, 1, 2, 2, and then 1 coastal. So that would be the 6th card in, would be the coastal card. This is the only Invader in the game that has this effect. So I'm not going to worry about stage 3 for now. We're going to look at the Scotland 2 setup. Okay, so Scotland 2, we'll do a little shuffle here. Okay, so we'll randomly remove a 1, and we'll randomly remove a 2. So Scotland, its Invader deck, looks like this. So let's think about the mathematical odds of us being able to correctly guess what card is coming up next. Okay, opening Explore, it's right here, right? There's nothing we can do about that. Well, this card here, there's a 1 in 3 chance of us guessing it correctly. Sorry, that's not 30. That's 33. Okay, great. Now, the stage 2, we already know that it is not coastal, right? We know that this card here is coastal, right? We have a 100% knowledge of this card. So there is a 1 in 4 chance of us guessing this card correctly. Okay, so we have a 25% chance here. And then logically, we removed 1. So now we're at a 1 in 3 chance here. Great. Then coming up to this stage 1, we've already seen 2 of them. So now this is a 50% chance of us guessing this correctly. Okay, here's the coastal card. We know exactly what it is. Then the card after it, well, we've already seen all the all the stage 2 cards besides 2 of them. So this is a 50% chance of us guessing it correctly. Then for the rest of the game, we're hitting stage 3 cards. So we can see that when we're playing in Scotland, there is this long window of time right here where we have a really high probability of correctly guessing every single card that's going to come up. We can do the most amount of planning at this stage of the game. We can basically premeditate 3-4 turns in a row right off the bat, which means that, if you want to take the time and really think through your moves, you can basically guarantee that you will either have won the game or be so ridiculously far ahead that, winning is inevitable by the time you get through this high probability chunk of time. Now, when you get to Scotland 4, you swap out the stage 1 with a stage 3, and so that makes it such that this becomes a 1 in 6 chance, which is about 17% chance of getting that correct. Decimals, whatever. We can't guess this card. This can be completely random for us. And that's a big part of what makes Scotland 4 harder than Scotland 2, because this window of full predictability gets shrunk down. Now, even knowing just one card completely in the void of anything else is still a huge advantage. But against Scotland 3, or against Scotland 2, we're going to be doing Scotland 3 this game, having a 3 turns where you have a super high probability of knowing the exact Invader deck is just wonderful. And so we're going to be going into this game. I'm going to be playing Thunder Speaker, so that way it's like we need to set up our Han in logical places. We might do a little bit of predictive movement in order to, maximize on the fact that we know exactly where the invaders will be going. All right, so before we get into the game, just want to quickly talk about a few other things with Scotland. First things first, board D is just your absolute worst board to play against Scotland with. Because of the double wetlands, let's just say that the second explore card of the game is wetlands. You'd start off with 2 cities on land number 2, and then you immediately build a city on lands number 1 and 3, and you instantly lose the game. So that's no fun. I'd recommend always skipping board D for a solo game against Scotland in a multiplayer game. Perhaps just pair it with one of the boards that doesn't have any wetlands on its coast, so that way you don't get blown out by any one card. As far as spirits, as which ones are good or not so good, pretty much every single spirit can play a good game into Scotland. And that's one of the reasons why I think it's just a great adversary. It doesn't have a playstyle that really eliminates any particular spirit from contention. But there are a few spirits that I want to draw particular attention to. So first would be Volcano. This would be a spirit that you'd probably want to pick a board. I oftentimes just play random boards, but if you're playing Volcano against Scotland, I'd recommend picking boards B or E. Those 2 boards have a mountain in land number 2, so you can start your Volcano right there, and you'll have good control over the coast. And then perhaps maybe then you eventually move your Volcano inland in order to clean up any inland stuff. But that's just one note to pay attention to for Volcano. For Ocean's Hungry Grasp, Scotland 1 through 4, it's the easiest, best matchup in the game for you. Scotland 5 really kicks your teeth in because the cascading blight into the ocean will start to destroy your presence. And if you had a presence in the blighted land, you'll lose 2 presence from a single ravage, which is just devastating. And if that happens, in a multiplayer game, you could lose like 5 presence in a single ravage and just get blown out. And then Scotland 6 makes Scotland a lot stronger inland, so Ocean just falls off a cliff in terms of strength there. But Ocean is just the best spirit in the game for beating Scotland 1 through 4. Stone oftentimes will just let the land blight, but if you're playing in Scotland 5, that means you're going to be taking extra blight in the Ocean. So you just need to be a little bit more careful in that matchup, that you still want to, instead of just using your innate to circumvent the blight being added, you want to use your cards to fight off the coast. For Lure, obviously Lure has a terrible matchup against Scotland because Lure is great at controlling the inland, and Scotland doesn't care about the inland at all. So it's just a big battle to stay ahead of the coasts such that you don't just lose to the loss condition. And lastly, the 2 spirits that came out with Scotland. So Scotland was released in Promo Pack 2 that came with Finder and Downpour in the same kit. And those 2 spirits are incredible against Scotland. Both of them have isolation built into their kits. And because we know the coastal land, exactly when that explorer is going to happen, it's a nice strategy with those spirits to basically isolate the entire coast on that turn, and you can completely deny an explorer. Also, you can do some isolations to play around Scotland 3, so that way you can deny the builds. So isolation is definitely at its strongest against Scotland. So we're not going to be playing board D. I pulled it out of the bag. We're going to delete that. We're going to play Thunder Speaker against Scotland 3. Let's get to it. So we got board F, which is not one of my favorites for Thunder Speaker because we're just all over here. And if we open up with the wetlands, it just, it sucks to have to run all your presence across the board. You'd like to be more active. But hopefully we just dodge the wetlands. All right, sweet. Sands. Cool. So the fact that we open up with an Explore on turn 1, every other turn of the game, this will come in as a town, means that we can just do a Words of Warning, and then we don't really need to worry about it. We can just let that be. So I'm going to do the Manifestation of Power and Glory plus Voice of Thunder combo in order to completely solve this inland. So these 2 would allow me to do 4 damage, and I can also destroy a town for each 2 Dahan. So that'll basically do 6 damage, and it'll clear everything in this land, which is really nice. The great easy opener. Okay, and then we are exploring the jungles. Oh man. So this is a tricky thing for us right here. Are we going to be able to deal with this jungle? And this first time around, I'm not so sure that we will. So instead of really trying to force the issue and trying to deal with it, we might just let this land blight take care of this inland and then set ourselves up for a big manifestation on a future turn. But anyways, we're going to push our 2 Dahan and Presence over. 1 Fear. And then kill everything using Manifestation. That's where the fear came from. 4 damage. And then destroy a town for 2 Dahan. Okay, great. Now, this next turn, we could do Growth 2 going top, or we could do Growth 2 going bottom. We do have enough energy if we just went straight across the bottom to play both of these cards. But we would wind up with 2 more energy next turn had we chosen to go top, but then we have a weaker turn. So what are we going to be doing? We know that we're just going to let this be. I mean, unless if we manage to pick up some incredible, defend 10 type of card, we're not going to be doing anything here. And we'll be using our Sudden Ambush to kill this Explorer, which will be nice. We can isolate out this sands and wetlands. Yeah, right now the plan is just to kind of take this one on the chin. So as far as next turn goes, I think it's because I want to set up for a manifestation. I'm going to take the extra energy so we can start to build up to that point in the game. Okay, so we're going to pay for this. Okay, we'll do our sudden ambush. So we'll take the opportunity to get an explorer, or get a Dahan in. Kill that. And then we'll give ourselves a defend 3. Okay, what's our first event? Don't ravage unless there's more invaders in the terror level. Okay, no effect. Beast deal a damage. Sweet. And then push a Dahan per Badland disease. Okay, no effect. Strife in a land with Beast Disease Dahan. Ooh. Oh. That changes things. Right, because now this is strifed off. So now this is only ravaging for 5. So if we pick up any kind of defense card on our reclaim when we gain more power cards, we may choose to just jump in and go for it. So anyways, we're going to ravage here. Okay, build in this. There's nothing here. And then this has a disease. So we'll go to our stage 2. And it's the mountains. So when you do an explore, you have to have a source for the explorer. It has to come from somewhere. And right now there is no adjacent town or city to mountains number 6. So it will not explore. However, we have to add a town for the Scotland escalation, and that happens before the explore happens. So if we added a town to any of these 3 lands, we would still have to explore this mountain. We obviously don't want that to happen, so we'd have to put our town into one of these 3 lands. It would be kind of frustrating to put the town here and then immediately make this into a big problem. So now our decision is basically which of these wetlands do we want to put it into. And I would like to keep our inland as clean as possible. It would be a really easy game for us if we just get all of our Dahan onto the coast and then just kind of run back and forth and kill everything. So we're going to put our town here, explore this, and this explore here is denied. Okay, in slow phase, we can gather 3 and then push 1. So now would be the time we could gather 3 in here, and we can roll the dice any kind of defense card at all, right? We already have a defend 3. If we manage to pick up any defense at all, a strife or anything like that, this will clean up real nice. We have enough Dahan already present to kill both of the cities, and that'll put us super far ahead. So we have 2 cards to gain. I think we hit hitting 1 defense and 8 reps. I think we got this. Okay, so we'll reclaim, gain a minor, and right there we have a defend 4. It is also notable it does have our elements, the sun, fire. Okay, missing the wind and the animal, but we only really need 1 animal total, so that's whatever. But sun, fire is great because that gives us our destruction. So this is one of my favorite cards to take with Thunderspeaker. Gives you a little bit of defense, and it gives you perfect elements for offense. Worth noting that Call to Ferocity is another amazing card for us. It has good elements, and it's all about moving your Dahan around and doing a little control with Dahan. Take this basically every time. Of course, this is what we need in the moment. Delusions of Danger has the sun, so it's actually not a bad card for us. We do need more sun than fire, so a card with sun, no fire is better than a card with fire, no sun. And ironically, we have a card with fire, no sun. Even though it has all of our other elements, I'm less likely to take this one, especially considering everything else. So ultimately, we need a defense card, and none of these cards are so great that it's worth skipping the defense. Okay, we gain another minor, and we have another good set of cards. So, Call to Bloodshed. I believe this is the card that we learned with the incoming Incarna was going to swap out Manifestation and Power and Glory in your starting hand. But, it's a great card for us, right? It very well could be a starting hand card. Promises of Protection moves our Dahan. That's great as well. And this is defense, right? If we had not already picked up defense, we would be taking Haunted by Primal Memories. But as is, we don't need it, so we can skip it. And then Teeming Rivers is a sun animal, so it has good elements. The effect is fine, nothing too crazy. The fact that we have these other great Dahan powers makes me inclined to take these instead. So I'm going to take Call to Bloodshed. It gives us both of our elements for our offensive innate, and it is more damage in itself. So this is a really nice hyper-aggressive card. Okay, we'll gain. So Elusive Ambush provides us enough defense to solve this. And we could play extra safe and, you know, play a second defense card to play around any kind of like +1 damage ability. But I'm going to get a little greedy, and I'm going to play Sudden Ambush. This will allow us to kill off this Explorer and basically just give us a free turn. Will allow us to completely lock out the game. So I'm going to play this a little aggressively. This is the decision I'm going to go with. Okay, so we'll defend 4 here. Then we'll come in here and kill the Explorer. Let's just hope we don't get any nasty event. Search for new lands. Does nothing. Each land 2 explorers. There's not even a single explorer on the board. Push a beast to an adjacent land with no blight. Deals a damage. Sick. Defend 1 per Dahan. Alright, great. So plenty of defense in this land. We get to hit back for 6. Okay, build in the mountains. And then explore the wetlands. So we have to do our Escalation Explore. As long as we don't add it to one of these 2, we'll be okay. We can isolate out this wetlands. We would not want to add it to one of these mountains because that just creates a problem for us. So we can either add it to a coastal land or we can add it to this jungle. And in fact, we'd have to put it in a land with the fewest towns. So really, we've narrowed our decision down to just these 2 lands. And I'm going to stick with our game plan of just overloading on the coast and just running our Dahan back and forth and cleaning up. So we're going to go here, and then we explore as a town. Great. So we happen to get ourselves into a nice advantage situation, and we're now approaching the point of the game where we can basically preordain the next 3 cards of the day. So we now have a stage 1 card coming up next. Okay, we've seen sands, we've seen jungle, so we know this has to either be a mountains or a wetlands. Okay, so the next card is either mountains or wetlands. Underneath that, we know we have a coastal card. Then underneath that is another stage 2. We've seen mountains, we've seen wetlands, we know it's not the coast, so it's either going to be jungle or sands. Ultimately, there is 4 possible ways that this can go. And now we can take a look and try and figure out if there's a way that we can do any kind of min-maxing. So let's see. If we were to destroy this town here, that would deny a mountain explorer. No matter what, we're denying a wetlands explorer. And we can't do anything here, right? So the only way that we can make this first explorer better is by destroying this town. Okay. Coast is coast, that's what it is. But then jungle sands. Okay, great. We can see if we can fight to keep this guy isolated back here. Jungle, we're going to be probably just stuck with just because, you know, the coast just happened, and so this jungle is probably going to hit. It is worth noting that these terrains, there is no repeats. So let's say we do get a mountain and we do come into here. We might just let this blight because it's not a coast, it's not a jungle, it's not a sands. So that means that for this mountain to get hit again, it would have to be at least 3 more cards before this becomes a problem a second time. Certainly, we'd want to protect this one because it already is blighted and, you know, there's no sense in taking a blight cascade. But this one, like, if it comes up as mountains, hey, just let it rock. Really, we'd like this to become wetlands because we're planning on dealing with this wetlands anyways. So if we get another wetlands coming up, we get wetlands, then coast, we basically hit the same land 3 turns in a row. We just sit our Dahan here in place, and then we just keep on solving it over and over and over again. And it's a lot easier to solve a small problem repeatedly than one massive, huge problem. You have to run all your Dahan over, do all kinds of crazy stuff. So the easiest way that could go would be a wetlands, and then a coast, and then a sands. If we get that, that would just be a free game. If we get either one of wetlands or sands, it's a little bit easier. But this is the point of the game where we are at our strongest, and we can start to predict and preordain and preset our Dahan before the card even shows up. So going into the slow powers, the only slow power we have is to move around some of our Dahan. And so we're going to come in here and set up our Dahan on the coast. Each coastal land is 2 Dahan. This is gorgeous. This is the best setup you could ever ask for. Okay, great. I'm thinking I don't want to play Words of Warning, but we don't have energy to do Manifestation. Manifestation would be nice. If we play Manifestation, then we'd probably just do this, using the animal for our left innate, Manifestation to do tons of damage here. So we know that this next card, it could be Wetlands. Let's just say it is Wetlands, right? So it would build, and then it would explore as a wetland. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If we brought all of this in, that would be hitting for 12, and that would completely clear it. And we'd still have, 2 damage, I don't know, kill off, something like that. The other option that we said we had was Mountain, which is way less cool because we're not pre-set up to deal with a mountain. So then we might have to get creative. But if we get specifically wetlands, this is the play that will completely blow the game wide open. So that's what we're going to go for. We're going to do growth number 3, getting all this energy. And I'm going to go bottom track here because I want to be able to do growth 2 to pick up the reclaim 1. We already have 2 cards in hand. So after reclaiming 1, we'll be at 3. We can play all 3 and then set up for a nice clean reclaim. Okay, so we'll add a presence here. So now every Dahan has a presence going with it. Okay, we have no fasts. Terror level 1. Okay, Ravages, doesn't matter. Beast doesn't do anything. And we get 1 fear for the board. Strife and land not matching a Ravage card. Great, so we are already planning on completely destroying, no matter what happens, we're going to kill everything in this wetlands. So therefore, we'd want to put a Strife on either one of these lands. And I'm going to arbitrarily choose, this. If we move these Dahan out, it'll be nice just to have a little protection here. We might be less effective moving our Dahan back. Okay, Ravage in the mountains, build in the wetlands, and let's hope for the wetlands. Dang it. All right, we get mountains. Never too easy. All right, 2 cards. Here we go. So if we could split our presence here. We could use our left, basically target here, so we gather up to 2. We just don't gather any. We have 2 suns, so we could push 2 Dahan. So we could push, split up like this. Okay, so that'll be our left innate. And then we would use Call to Bloodshed, 1 damage per Dahan here. Manifestation of Power and Glory, 1 fear, and then 3 times 3 is 9. And there's 7 health here, so we get to kill all of this. And then last, we have our right innate, which is destroy a town for every 2 Dahan. So we will kill this town. Great, we're in Terror level 2. And that is all. Time passes. Okay, So we can now that we have mountains, there's only two possible ways that the next couple cards can go. And because, right, we already said that we're going to be going bottom bottom, so I'll just do that right now. At this point, we already have, like, you know, every Dahan's already paired up with a presence, so where we add the presence becomes a little bit less significant, because now some presence is going to have to be left behind. We can't run around with everything. So corners, whatever, it really doesn't matter. You could, like, create a sacred site somewhere if you wanted to. You have a lot of flexibility. So let us take the time now to think through all the things that are going to happen. So first off, Ravage. Okay, Ravage is solved. Build. We're expecting a town to exist here. Then we're going to explore. We're exploring as coast. So when we explore on the coast, two of them have to come in as towns, and one of them will come in as an explorer. There is a nice little trick where, let's just say that it was Sands was here in the build slot instead of mountains. Put your explorer here and then let it just die to the Ravage. That'd be just a nice way to solve it, but alas, that is not how the cards played out. So we know we're going to be adding two towns and an explorer. So since we already have a town here, we need to consider that we don't want to get a city in every land. So we want to make sure that one of these wings gets just an explorer, and then we want to make sure that we put a town here in the jungle. So because we have more Dahan on this side of the board, we're stronger. So I'm going to say we're going to put the town here, and then we're going to put the explorer here. Do that in one stroke, easy to erase. Okay, so that is how it's going to be at the end of this next Invader phase. If we don't, and then, so what can we do to interact with all of this? All right, we already know that we're playing these cards. Okay, Words of Warning, we're just using it basically just for the animal element. We're going to want to pick up something with a fire, and hopefully that's less expensive. We have enough for sudden ambush. We could take a sudden ambush to solve here to eliminate the town, because the stage 2 is either going to be a sands or a jungle. So if we eliminate this town, then we can isolate this sands. So that is a strong candidate. The other fire would be Call to Bloodshed or Elusive Ambush. Call to Bloodshed is a very interesting one as well, just more damage. That way, after this town comes up, maybe we destroy that town with this. Or either way, whether we use Call to Bloodshed or Lead the Furious Assault, we need 4 Dahan in this land in order to destroy both towns. Or we could set this up for a manifestation. Okay, so that's another option. And then Elusive Ambushes, I don't think is a very good choice. So it really is between these two, Sudden Ambush and then Call to Bloodshed. I'm going to elect to go with Sudden Ambush because it's just simpler, right? It just solves the problem right here, and you know, we're still hitting our left innate. And so we can just destroy this town after it explores in. Okay, so these are the cards that we're going to play. So how does this change what's on the board? And now that we know this, can we preordain a little bit farther? So we know that we're going to be killing off this guy. Okay, so he's not there anymore. So there is no build. Okay, this is how we're planning on exploring. Okay, and then let's just say that it comes in as a sands. Sorry. This would how it would be at the end of turn. Okay, so the next turn, we would have mountain in the Ravage slot, coasts in the build. Okay, so mountains, Ravage, there is nothing here. Okay, great. So then we'd build. Okay, so we'd have a town, and we'd have a city, and a city. Okay, here in the slow phase, what can we have done to prevent this from happening? Well, we were planning on using our left innate here to destroy this town. So we can say that this never came into existence. So now we have an explorer town and a town city. Okay, we'd probably use our voice of thunder and maybe our left innate, and we'd gather a whole bunch of stuff into here. So that means this next turn, we're definitely going to want to hit this land with a manifestation. If we have Fort Han, Fort Presence at 16, that'll kill all of that, easy. So that will be how it'll build. And then we either explore in the sands. Okay, so if we explore in the sands, we'd have another town here, and then nothing here, or jungle, which will give us a town explorer. Either one of these situations we're going to be okay with. If we get the town explorer from the jungle, we're already manifesting for 6, so that's going to be 6, 7, 8, 9 health. Everything will die. If we get the sands, we have 5 damage being dealt, and we have a defend 4. So either situation we will be able to solve. So great. We can now move ahead with confidence. We've preordained the next few turns, and I expect that we're going to win this game before we get to stage 3. Okay, great. So now it's time to execute. Okay, sudden ambush will come out here. Words of warning, there is nothing, but I'm just going to drop a defend 3, I don't know, here, in case of something weird happens, protects a blighted land. I don't know, I can't even imagine. Although actually, there is that one event that like pushes a town inland, so we could just push a town inland and then have it, and we just win, and then all of that pre-planning was for nothing, so that would be funny. But anyways, that is our fast powers. It is worth noting that we could just win the game right now by just going fast, running in and killing the town and winning. But I did all that work to pre-plan, so I want to get a little bit of payoff for that. And I want to make it so you didn't listen to me for no reason. Okay, so we're in stage 2. After advancing cards, building a terrain not shown under any invader action. We know this is a coast card, so we know that we're going to build in anything that is not a mountain. Beast deal 2 damage, great. Add a Dahan to a mountain or sands. Great. Let's go over here, add it to the weak side. We have less Dahan on this side of the board, so we're weaker. Skip the next explorer. Okay. And then don't build cities and coastal lands. Okay, no ravage, no build, no explore. And, well, I guess now I just have to kill it. Can't beat around the bush anymore. That would just be unfair. And there we go. It's Terra level 2 victory. Okay, but let's say that, this was something else. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Okay, and we got this coastal land here. All right, so we had this. We're planning on going here and here. Now, we can, use this, destroy, and then we can gather all of our Dahan in over here using our left innate. And then with Voice of Thunder, we already have all the Dahan in the places where we want it. So you would probably just use it for 2 fear. Okay, time passes. Reclaim. The cards that we gain don't really matter. We would just get ourselves up to the 3 energy, so that we can do manifestation and this plus any kind of 0 cost card, just because we have the 3 card plays, right? It doesn't matter. We'll do something like that. That is actually a good card to pick just because of the animal. And then, great, we'd go through, do the event, ravage, build, and then explore, and we happen to hit jungles. So here, we have to add another town, right? We could go somewhere like this, somewhere that's just like out of the play for a little bit. Manifestation, okay, we've already pre-planned. We're gonna kill everything here. We have our defense, and things are looking good. So it all just kind of happened to work out that we had it fully covered. But had this game gone on just a little bit, we got a little bit worse luck with our invader draws. Taking that time to pre-plan everything completely locks the game down. And being able to win before you get to stage 3 is great. Because all of a sudden there's a spike in predictability. I have no clue what card's going to come up here. A Jungle Sands, that could really be devastating because, these both will explore as towns. This one, we might still be isolated, depends how we deal with this here. But at the very least, we have 3. And if we can't deal with all 3, then this jungle, gets this right back into the game. So all of a sudden the game can run away from you if you don't take the time to think through the decision tree. It is, frankly, a small decision tree in this moment with this 1 coastal 2. There's only 4 possible ways that can play out. And so Scotland is the most apparent adversary that does this, but with every adversary in the game, take the time to really think through what could be coming up next, and if there's a way that you could adjust your play in order to maximize the advantage that you could gain. Anyways, thanks for watching this video, guys, and have yourself a wonderful day.